What if I told you there is a programming problem that 90% of applicants for entry-level jobs usually fail? Well, there is such a problem, and today I'm going to show you how to solve it. Hey there, ladies and gents, welcome back to the vlog. My name is Drew, and I'm just so glad that you're here today. So I realize I do a lot of videos about surviving computer science in college, but there is a point after which you graduate that you're probably going to be looking for a job and hopefully trying to pull down some big dollars for that degree that you've been working so hard for. And typically during the interview process for any technical role, for a developer, for an IT role, for just about anything within the realm of IT or computer science, there's usually always a technical round. I might have to make another video where I talk about a typical interview cycle for a technical role, but today we're going to be talking about one of the parts of your interview cycle, which is the technical round. Now, a technical interview or a technical round is usually where you're sitting down with either a manager or a senior developer or somebody who has like firsthand knowledge of the technical requirements of the job. So it could either be the person that you're going to be reporting to or somebody that you're going to work with on the team, but somebody that can test you on the technical ins and outs of the job to make sure that you're ready and you understand the job that you are applying for. And typically in these technical interviews, they'll have one or two programming problems along with some other things. They'll ask you some general questions like, hey, tell me about the ISO model, or tell me about Java versus C++, or tell me about object-oriented programming versus procedural programming. Very high-level topical questions, but there's also usually an application or like a programming challenge that you'll have to complete. And sometimes they're easy, so it'll be something like write a merge sort, or write an implementation of bubble sort, or write an implementation of a FIFO queue, or write an implementation of a stack or a linked list, or something that you've seen in your college days before. But if they're really testing you, then they're going to give you a problem that you probably haven't seen in your computer science curriculum throughout the years that you've been in college. And that's a good thing, because you want to make sure that you understand, or they want to make sure that you understand the concepts more abstractly, that you're not just regurgitating something that you have to remember for a test, but you actually understand how a linked list works, or how a FIFO queue works, or how any of these concepts work. And one of the favorite questions to do this is what's called the FizzBuzz problem. And I got asked this problem at an interview, and for a good chunk of computer scientists, it seems like a pretty straightforward question, and I'll go into it in a little bit, but there's kind of a dastardly underside to this question that I'll explain in a little bit as well. But the FizzBuzz problem is purported to, well, some people cite that like 99% of programming applicants will fail this test or something like that. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think they're kind of exaggerating for a dramatic effect, but it is a difficult problem for all the reasons that I'm about to explain. But first, let's actually read the problem and understand what it's asking for. So the FizzBuzz problem goes, and this is how it was given to me. It's been presented a couple different ways, but FizzBuzz goes this way. Count the numbers and print out to the screen all the numbers from 1 to 100. If the number is a multiple of 3, instead of outputting the number, output the word fizz. If the number is a multiple of 5, output the word buzz. If the number is a multiple of 3 and 5, output FizzBuzz. So it's pretty straightforward. It's one of those things that you could chop together in about 5 minutes. And when I was interviewing, I got pretty much like 5 to 10 minutes. They say, okay, grab a marker, go to the whiteboard and write the solution out. And so in a minute here, we're actually going to get into live code. I'm going to show you a solution to the problem, but that may not be the best thing for you, and here's why. The FizzBuzz problem, like I said, exists in this kind of realm of questions that you don't usually see in computer science classrooms. In computer science in college, you'll have very theoretical concepts like just understanding how a stack works, how a queue works, what a sorting algorithm is, all this very high-level stuff. The FizzBuzz problem usually doesn't get asked in college classrooms. The FizzBuzz problem requires you to think critically and to understand the different components of programming and the different operators and synthesize a completely new answer. And so it's a weed out, or it makes, 99 or whatever percent of people fail, because apparently 99% of people that go into programming interviews are just memorizing how to do bubble sort, how to do merge sort, and everything like that. They're not actually thinking critically about how to make it work. So I'm going to show you a solution to it, but Before we do that, pause the video, write out a solution that you think is correct, and then we'll compare answers here in a second. But inevitably with FizzBuzz, and there's some other problems that are like it, but it's really testing to understand, do you understand programming versus do you understand programs? Because anybody can regurgitate bubble sort, but do you understand the mechanics behind the program itself and the different operators and everything like that? So as you're reading through this solution, be very honest with yourself and say, hey, is my answer close enough, or do I understand like the operators at work here and how the solution came to be? Or am I a person that generally memorizes solutions and goes from there? So either way you cut it, it's great to see these questions ahead of time just so that you can kind of set pace and understand where you are as a developer or as a programming student or potentially a professional programmer. But yeah, this will be a good test to see if you're interview ready, I guess you can say. And without further ado, let's jump into the code and I'll show you what I'm thinking.
Alrighty, ladies and gents, here we are. We are set up and ready to go. I'm going to be writing my implementation of the FizzBuzz problem in PHP, but depending on your preferred language, you can of course change it. And one other thing, if you're interviewing for like a Java or a C# or a certain blank developer role, then I would definitely be ready to do this problem in that language because that's probably what they're going to be looking for. So all I did is I made one little file called fizzbuzz.php, and then I loaded it up over here using a local server, and I just did a little hello world to make sure that everything was configured correctly, and we are good to go. So this is going to be my first sit down and code of the day, so I may be a little bit off. My fingers aren't quite warm yet, but let's see how this goes. So again, to review the problem, it goes write a program that prints the numbers from 1 to 100. But for multiples of 3, print fizz instead of that number, and for multiples of 5, print buzz. For numbers which are multiples of both 3 and 5, print FizzBuzz. So to start things off, I'm going to do I'll do a for which. I'll do for, there we go. So you can do this a couple different ways. I'm going to do a for loop. You could do a do while. The reason I'm not doing a do while is because you have to instantiate a separate variable, so I'd have to make like a counter variable. But the for I loop, or the for with the counter here, will get us right where we need to be, and we don't have to add any extra variables. So we're starting at 1 because we want to count from 1 to 100, and I is less than or equal to 100. That will get us going. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the implementation that I actually wrote when I was interviewing, and then I'm going to go through the errors that I made and then how to correct them. So when I did it, I did less than or equal to 99. Now, the astute among you will notice that there's an error right there, but we'll get to that in a second. So we are going to echo I and then concatenate a break and see what that gives us. So we save, refresh, and looky there. So, do you see the error yet? I stop at 99. And the reason for that is this is what you call an off by 1. So an off by 1 is pretty common when you're writing code on the fly. And if you're under stress, you probably won't notice. Like if you're in an interview and you're under stress, you probably won't notice this. But generally, they're a lot more forgiving with this sort of thing. So just remember that when you're doing your variable instantiation and when you're counting up to do 100 here, or if you're doing less than, you would do 101. So, but I'm going to do less than or equal to because it's more concise, and then we refresh. And let me see here. Like I said, it's going to be rough here. This is my first couple lines of code today, and it's not going well so far. Anyway, there we go. We're up to 100, so we count from 1 to 100. And look at that, we're off and running. So we got this part done. Now, this is where the challenge comes in. So there's an operator that you can use to find multiples of a number, but it's kind of the forgotten operator. If you're not familiar with it, don't worry. They don't really teach this operator as much as I think they should in college, but there is this guy, which we call the modulo operator. It's a percent sign, and basically the modulo operator divides a number and gives you the remainder. So if you want to find if something's a multiple of something, you would do like 100 mod 3, and then you would test that against 0, because if you can perfectly divide a number, you won't have a remainder. So when you do mod 3, you're saying, hey, divide 100 by 3 and see what you get. If it's equal to 0, then do this condition. Otherwise, do something else. So the modulo just gives you a remainder, and if the modulo is 0, that means it's perfectly divisible, or that number is a multiple of whatever you're modding by. So here's what I did in my interview. So if I mod 3 equals 0, geez, this coding on the fly stuff, they say it's so easy when you're doing it, but when the cameras are rolling, it gets a lot more tricky. So if I is a modulo of 3, so I divided by 3 equals 0. So it's a perfectly divisible number by 3. It's a multiple of 3, in other words. We are going to echo fizz. And then, because we're good programmers, we're going to program and check. And let's see here. Actually, we're going to drop down here, else, and then we'll drop this in here. So now, oh yeah, by the way, I don't have a a license for Sublime yet, but I'll have to get that one of these days. So we refresh, and I forgot to put a break here, so this is what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. So we're off to a good start. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3. 3 is divisible by 3, or 3 is a multiple of 3, so we print fizz. Then we go to 6, fizz. 9, fizz. 12, fizz. Good. So we're doing well. Here we are. We're on the right track. Now the mistake that I made, well, it's not really a mistake. It's correct, but you can optimize this code better here in a second. I'll show you in a second. I did, in my interview, I did if mod 3 equals 0 and, nope, not that one. And let's see here. And then mod 5 is 0, then echo FizzBuzz. And give me a break. And then I did one more conditional after this. So, and then for only 5, you do this one. And that's buzz. Okay, and so when we run it, we see that 5 is a multiple of 5, so you get buzz here, and then our first FizzBuzz should be 15, and it is not. Okay, so if you see the fizz and then buzz, okay. So I guess when I was interviewing, they may not have caught it, but technically, again, when you're at a technical interview, they're not looking for absolute perfection. Like, they're not going to be typing your code out as you're writing it and then testing it, but they just want to make sure conceptually you get like 90% of it. So technically, from a conceptual level, this is correct. So if it's divisible by 3, you print fizz. If it's divisible by 3 and 5, you print FizzBuzz. Else you do, or divisible by 5, you do just buzz, else you just print the number. So there is a way to optimize this, however. So if we are in the block for divisible by 3, we can do another check here, and we can say if I mod 5 equals 0. So this is, at this point, we're saying if it's divisible by 3 and it's divisible by 5, sound familiar? You can go in here. Else, you do fizz. So cut that out right there. Cool. And that eliminates this row effectively. And so you don't have to have a bunch of else ifs. You can just capture it in the first block, and then that cleans up your code just a little bit, and it makes it a little bit more readable. But like I said, the other way, they gave me points for it, so if you do it the other way, there's no harm in that. So either way you cut it, this is just a little bit more efficient. So we will save and run our code, and looky there, we've got our implementation. So that took us like 5-10 minutes. And typically in an interview, like I said, they'll give you 5 to 10 minutes to write things out, and there's other ways that you can optimize this, and there's other ways you can change it as well. So you could do 5 and 7, so if it's divisible by 5 and then divisible by 7. So they can spin it any which way, but the core value of this exercise is to understand, do you understand control structure or control flow, like ifs and else's and stuff like that? Do you know about the mod operator? And there's a way to brute force it to, there's other ways that you can calculate a mod, but the modulo operator is there. And if you remember the modulo operator, that's bonus points because that's what it's there for. And can you do it all in a succinct amount of time without using Google or something like that? So yeah, here we are. This is our implementation of FizzBuzz, and I hope you guys enjoyed.
As mentioned in the code snippet that you just watched, the FizzBuzz problem can be reiterated a couple different ways. So you can do different numbers, you can do 1 to 1,000, you can do 1 to 200. So it just depends on who you're interviewing with and everything like that, but they may change it up on you too. But again, just feel confident, feel comfortable, feel relaxed. Just remember that modulo operator and remember your control structures, how to check for stuff. And yeah, this problem isn't hard. It's just for people who maybe don't program as regularly or don't understand programming as a skill or a practice as opposed to just memorizing stuff. It gets a little bit difficult, but I have no doubt that if you're watching this video and you're preparing for an interview, or you're just a little bit curious about programming problems and questions you get asked when you are interviewing for a professional programmer role, then you're probably a pretty good programmer to begin with, and this should be no problem at all. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and without further ado, we'll close out this rather long video. And we'll end in the normal way, and that is by me saying, always remember, friends, that you are wanted, you are loved, and you are appreciated. You have a special talent that nobody else has, and the world is waiting on you to bring it out. So muster a little courage, go out into the world, and change it. That's what the world's waiting on. You.